The sound of a car engine sputtering filled the quiet road as a man slowed his old pickup truck. He was a single dad, driving home with his little girl in the back seat. It had been a long day at work, and all he wanted was to get home, make dinner, and let his daughter rest. But ahead, on the side of the road, he saw a car stopped with its hood up. A woman was standing there, looking frustrated and helpless. He glanced in the rearview mirror. His daughter was holding her small stuffed toy, her tired eyes watching the world pass by. He thought about driving past, telling himself he was too tired. But something inside him would not let him. He slowed down and pulled over. The woman stepped back as he parked. She looked surprised, but also relieved. "Car trouble?" he asked gently. She nodded, brushing her hair back from her face, embarrassed that a stranger had stopped for her. His daughter pressed her nose against the window, watching closely. The father got out, wiped his hands on his work pants, and leaned over the engine. He could see right away it was something small, something he could fix. The woman stood nearby, explaining what had happened. Her voice was nervous, but kind. The man worked with quiet focus, using the little tools he kept in his truck. His hands were rough from years of labor, but they were steady and patient. His daughter opened the door and stepped out, her little shoes crunching on the gravel. She stood close, watching her father, as if he was performing magic. The woman noticed the girl and gave her a warm smile. "You have a good dad," she said softly. The girl nodded proudly. "He always fixes things." Minutes later, the father closed the hood. "Try it now," he said. The woman turned the key, and the engine came back to life. Her face lit up with relief. She stepped out of the car, her eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." The father shrugged, modest as always. "Just glad to help." He bent down to pick up his tools, but before he could stand again, his daughter's little voice cut through the air. "Daddy," she said, pointing at the woman with her small hand. "Can she be my mommy?" The world froze in that instant. The woman's smile faded into shock, her eyes wide. The father stood frozen, the wrench still in his hand. His heart skipped, and for a moment he did not know what to say. The innocence in his daughter's voice made the moment heavier than anything he had felt in years. The woman knelt down in front of the little girl, her expression softening. She reached out gently, not touching, but close enough for the girl to feel her kindness. "That's very sweet of you," she said in a tender voice. The father shifted uncomfortably, his face caught between embarrassment and sadness. His daughter, too young to understand the weight of her words, simply smiled. She held her toy close and looked between them, as if she had just asked the most natural question in the world. The woman glanced at the father, their eyes meeting for the first time in a way that felt different. In that glance, she saw not just a man who had helped her, but a man carrying years of quiet struggles, raising a child on his own. He saw not just a stranger in need, but someone who had shown kindness to his daughter without hesitation. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the sound of the car engine running. Finally, the father cleared his throat and said softly, "She doesn't really know what she's saying." "I'm sorry." The woman shook her head gently. "No need to be sorry. She's just honest." She gave the girl another smile before standing again. "Thank you for stopping. Really, I won't forget this." The father nodded, his chest heavy. He opened the truck door for his daughter. She climbed in, still looking back at the woman, as if she didn't want to leave. The woman waved, and the girl waved back with her small hand. As they drove away, the father's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. His daughter leaned against the seat, her voice soft but clear. "She was nice, Daddy. I like her." The father didn't reply. His mind replayed the scene again and again. The sound of his daughter's voice, that simple question, echoed louder than anything. "Can she be my mommy?" The road stretched ahead in silence, but something had shifted. Neither of them knew it yet, but that brief roadside moment would not be the end. It was the beginning of something unexpected, something neither of them could have imagined. The next morning felt different, even though it started the same as always. The single dad woke up early, made breakfast, and packed his daughter's small school bag. He tried to focus on the routine, but his mind kept drifting back to the woman from the night before. He could still see her thankful smile, and even more, he could still hear his daughter's innocent question echoing in his head. On the way to school, his daughter sat in the back seat, humming to herself, hugging her stuffed toy. She seemed cheerful, as if yesterday's event had planted a happy seed in her mind. At a red light, she suddenly leaned forward. "Daddy, do you think we'll see her again?" Her eyes were wide with hope. He hesitated before answering. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. The world is big." "But she was nice," the girl insisted. "I liked how she smiled at me." He forced a small smile, though inside he felt conflicted. It wasn't the first time his daughter had asked about having a mom, but last night's timing had caught him off guard. He dropped her off at school and went to work, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop thinking about the chance meeting. Later that week, fate seemed to step in. After picking up his daughter, he stopped at a small cafe for a quick bite. As they walked in, his daughter tugged his hand. "Daddy, look." She pointed toward a table near the window. There she was, the same woman. She was sipping coffee, reading something on her phone. For a second, he considered turning around and leaving. But before he could, the woman looked up and their eyes met. She gave a warm smile, a look that carried recognition. "Hi," she said as they approached. "I didn't expect to see you again so soon." His daughter's face lit up as if Christmas had arrived early. She quickly ran to the woman's side and said, "Hi, remember me?" The woman laughed softly, nodding. "Of course I do. How could I forget?" The father felt awkward, but sat down when she gestured toward the empty seats. They ordered food, and conversation started slowly. At first it was small talk, the weather, the busy week, the school run. But soon, the walls between them began to lower. She shared a bit about herself. She had moved to town recently, leaving behind a life that no longer made her happy. It was not easy starting over, she admitted, but she was trying to rebuild. The father listened quietly, understanding the tone in her voice. When it was his turn, he spoke about his life. He explained that his wife had passed away a few years back, leaving him to raise his daughter alone. It had been the hardest journey of his life, but he had learned to keep going because of his little girl. His voice wavered slightly when he said it, but he kept his emotions in check. The woman nodded, her eyes soft with respect. "You're doing something incredible," she said. Not many people could handle so much and still smile for their child. His daughter, meanwhile, was happily chatting with her, asking simple questions, giggling at small jokes. The bond forming between them was visible, and it made the father's heart both warm and uneasy. Warm, because his daughter looked happy. Uneasy, because he feared what it might mean if things grew deeper. When it was time to leave, the woman insisted on paying for the coffee as a thank you for his help with her car. He declined at first, but she insisted with a playful grin. They exchanged a look that lasted longer than either expected. Outside the cafe, his daughter clung to his arm. "Daddy, can we see her again?" The woman overheard and smiled softly. "Well, maybe we'll bump into each other again," she said. The father nodded, though inside he wasn't sure what he hoped for. As they walked back to the truck, he noticed his daughter skipping, her happiness brighter than usual. That night, after putting his daughter to bed, he sat alone at the kitchen table. He stared at his hands, rough and tired, and thought about the way the woman had spoken to him, not with pity, but with genuine respect. He thought about the way his daughter had laughed so freely in her presence. He realized something was shifting. It was small, fragile, and uncertain, but it was there. For years, he had closed himself off, convinced that love and companionship were no longer part of his path. Yet here was a stranger who had entered their lives unexpectedly, and already his daughter was dreaming of a future that he wasn't sure he could give her. As he sat in silence, he couldn't help but wonder if yesterday's question from his daughter had planted more than just an awkward moment. Maybe, just maybe, it had opened a door neither of them had been ready for. The weeks rolled by, and life went on with its normal rhythm. The father worked his shifts, cooked meals, and helped his daughter with her homework at night. Yet, in the middle of this routine, something new had begun to take root. He and the woman from the roadside had started to see each other more often. Sometimes it was by chance, like at the grocery store. Sometimes it was planned, like meeting at the park, so their kids could play. Each time, the connection grew stronger, though neither of them said it out loud. His daughter noticed it more than anyone. She asked questions every day. "Daddy, will she come with us to the park again? Daddy, do you think she likes us?" Her little face carried hope, the kind of hope only a child could have. He often stayed quiet, unsure how to answer, but deep down, he knew his daughter had already accepted this woman in a special way. At the park one Saturday afternoon, the three of them sat on a bench, watching children run around. His daughter played tag with other kids, but every few minutes, she ran back to sit next to the woman, giggling and talking as if they had known each other for years. The father watched this quietly, his heart caught between joy and fear. He wanted to let it happen, but the fear of losing everything again weighed heavily on him. The woman noticed his silence. "You're quiet today," she said gently. He shrugged. "Just thinking." "About what?" she asked, her voice soft, almost careful. He hesitated. "About whether I'm doing the right thing. Letting my little girl get so close to someone when I don't even know if," he trailed off, unsure how to finish. She looked at him with understanding. "It's okay to be careful. But sometimes life gives us people at the exact moment we need them." Her words sank into him, but he didn't reply. His daughter came running back then, jumping into his lap, laughing. She wrapped her arms around him, then looked at the woman and said, "You feel like my mom." The world seemed to stop again. The woman's smile froze, her eyes glistening with something unspoken. The father swallowed hard, unsure what to say. His daughter had no idea the weight of her words, but to the adults, it felt like a truth too heavy to ignore. That evening, after they dropped the woman off, the little girl whispered in the truck, "Daddy, she's really nice. I wish she could stay with us." He didn't respond right away. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. He wanted to tell her not to get her hopes up, that life wasn't that simple. But when he looked at her small face, full of trust and innocence, he couldn't break her heart. All he could say was, "I know, sweetheart. I know." In the days that followed, he found himself thinking about the woman more often. He noticed how his daughter's laughter seemed brighter when she was around. He noticed how his own burdens felt lighter when he shared them, even in small conversations. And yet, the fear of opening his heart again held him back. He had already lost once before. He wasn't sure if he had the strength to survive losing again. One evening, the woman invited them to join her for a small dinner at her place. It was simple, just pasta, salad, and laughter, but it felt strangely like home. His daughter drew pictures at the table, laughing as she showed them. One drawing showed the three of them holding hands. The father stared at it for a long time, his chest tightening. The woman noticed, but neither of them said a word. When it was time to leave, his daughter clung to the woman's hand and didn't want to let go. "Please come with us," she begged. The woman knelt, hugged her gently, and whispered, "Maybe another day." On the drive home, the father felt the weight of it all pressing down. His daughter had already opened her heart fully. The woman, too, seemed to be letting them in. And he stood in the middle, torn between the walls he had built and the door that life was now opening. That night, lying awake, he realized something. Whether he was ready or not, change was happening. The bond was real, and pretending otherwise would only hurt them all. His daughter had asked once on the roadside, and again at the park. The question still hung in the air, waiting for an answer he wasn't sure he could give. The days started blending into one another, but something had clearly changed in the way their lives moved. The father had always been used to routine: work, school runs, dinner, bedtime. But now there were moments breaking through that routine, moments where the woman appeared in their world and made everything feel lighter. One Friday afternoon, the father got a call from his boss. There was a sudden need for overtime. The money would help with bills, but the problem was his daughter, who would watch her until he got home. He sat at the table, rubbing his forehead, worried. His daughter looked up from coloring, her small voice breaking the silence. "Daddy, maybe she can stay with me." He didn't answer right away, but later that evening, he called the woman. He hesitated before speaking, but finally asked, "Would you mind watching her for a few hours? Just this once. I don't usually ask anyone for help." There was no pause on her end. "Of course," she said softly. "I'd be happy to." The next day, after school, his daughter went to her place. The father worked late into the evening, his mind distracted by worry. Was he doing the right thing, trusting someone so soon? When he finally got off work, his heart raced as he drove to her home. He stepped inside quietly, not wanting to disturb. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. His daughter was fast asleep on the couch, her head resting on the woman's lap. The woman sat still, stroking the girl's hair gently, her face calm and peaceful. It was a picture he had not seen in years, something he thought he would never see again. The sight struck him deeply. Memories of his late wife came flooding back, the love they shared, the pain of losing her, the years of loneliness. Now here was someone new, holding his daughter with the kind of care that couldn't be faked. He stood there quietly, afraid to break the moment. The woman looked up and saw him standing in the doorway. She gave a small smile, her voice barely above a whisper. She fell asleep after dinner. She was telling me about her favorite stories, and then she just closed her eyes. The father's throat tightened. He walked over, sat down, and gently touched his daughter's hand. For a moment, the three of them sat together in silence, as if they had always belonged in the same room. Later, after carrying his daughter to the car, the father found himself lingering at her door. He wanted to say something, but struggled to find the right words. Finally, he said, "Thank you. For today. For everything." She looked at him, her eyes soft but steady. "You don't need to thank me. She's a wonderful girl. You're doing an amazing job with her." He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "It hasn't been easy. Some days, I still feel like I'm failing." She shook her head gently. "You're not failing. You're fighting for her every day. That's what makes you a good father." Her words touched him in a way he hadn't expected. For years, he had carried the weight of guilt, the fear that he wasn't enough for his daughter. Hearing her say it lifted something heavy from his heart. They stood there in silence, the air thick with something unspoken. Finally, he admitted, his voice low, "I'm scared. I lost someone before. I don't know if I can open that door again." Her eyes softened even more. "I'm scared too," she whispered. "But sometimes being scared just means it's something worth trying for." He looked at her, and in that moment, his guard began to fall. He didn't say anything more, but his hand brushed against hers, and she didn't pull away. Driving home that night, his daughter stirred awake in the back seat. Her sleepy voice drifted forward. "Daddy, I like her. She makes me feel safe." He glanced at her through the mirror, his chest heavy yet hopeful. For the first time in years, he felt something stirring inside him, not just the weight of responsibility, but the possibility of a new beginning. As the road stretched ahead, he realized he was standing at a crossroad. One path was familiar, lonely, but safe. The other was uncertain, filled with fear, but also with the chance of something beautiful. His daughter had asked the question before, and he had brushed it off. But now, after what he had seen tonight, he knew the question would return. And this time, he wasn't sure if he wanted to stop it. Months slipped by, but those months no longer felt like the ones before. The single dad's life had changed in ways he never thought possible. What once felt heavy and endless, work, chores, loneliness, now carried a different rhythm. The woman had quietly become part of their days. Sometimes it was small, like joining them at the park or sharing dinner. Sometimes it was bigger, like helping with school projects or watching his daughter when he had to work late. For his daughter, the change was natural. She no longer asked if they could see her. Instead, she asked when. She drew pictures of the three of them together, stuck them on the fridge, and smiled proudly every time she saw them. She laughed more, talked more, and seemed to glow with a happiness her father had long hoped to give her. For him, the change was more complicated. His heart still carried scars, and fear still whispered in quiet moments. But with every shared laugh, with every evening spent together, the walls he had built began to fall. He started to see not just what he had lost, but what he could gain. One evening, the three of them sat at the kitchen table after dinner. His daughter had just finished drawing another picture. She held it up proudly, a drawing of herself holding hands with her dad on one side and the woman on the other. Above the three figures, she had written one simple word: family. The father stared at it, his chest tight. The woman's eyes glistened, her lips pressed together as she tried to hold back emotion. His daughter looked at them both, her voice soft but filled with hope. "Daddy, can she be my mommy now?" This time, there was no awkward silence, no attempt to brush it away. The father looked at the woman, and she looked back, her eyes shining with quiet tears. For the first time, he didn't feel the weight of fear. He felt the pull of something real, something stronger than the past. He reached out, placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder, and spoke gently. "Sweetheart, maybe she already is." His daughter's eyes lit up, and she jumped into his arms, laughing with pure joy. The woman reached across the table, her hand meeting his. It was simple, but it carried all the weight of everything they had been holding back. In the weeks that followed, their lives continued to blend. There were still challenges, busy schedules, responsibilities, moments of doubt, but now they faced them together. Small things became meaningful. Grocery runs turned into family outings. Movie nights became filled with laughter. Even chores felt lighter when shared. The father often found himself watching quietly, grateful for moments he thought he would never have again. Seeing his daughter fall asleep with a smile, hearing her laughter fill the house, and watching her hold the woman's hand as if it had always been there, it was all a reminder of how far they had come. One Sunday morning, they went to the park together. His daughter ran ahead, spinning in the grass, her laughter echoing in the open air. The woman stood beside him, smiling as they watched her. "She's happy," she said softly. "She is," he replied, his voice low but steady. "Because of you." She shook her head. "Because of us." He turned to her, realizing how true that was. For so long, he had carried everything alone, believing that was the only way. But now he saw that opening his heart again had not just given his daughter what she needed. It had given him something too. As his daughter ran back to them, grabbing both their hands, the three of them walked together down the path. They didn't need big promises or perfect plans. What they had was enough. For the father, it wasn't about replacing what was lost. It was about building something new. For the woman, it was about finding a place where she belonged. For the little girl, it was about finally feeling whole. And so, the story that began on a quiet roadside with a broken-down car had turned into something none of them expected. The beginning of a family.